Alrighty, it's time to start baking our bread. Did you remember to feed your starter yesterday? We're on day 3. We fed our starter, we let it sit on the counter. Day 2, we fed our starter, we let it sit on the counter. Day 3, we fed our starter twice, once in the morning and once at night. Now, as you notice, it's been growing in size, so you'll have enough starter to do probably more than one batch of bread. Now, I have a double oven, which makes it pretty handy for me to do 2 loaves of bread like this, because it's a little more complicated, like I said before, than doing yeast bread. So, what we have now is a fed starter, and we have a recipe, and I will show you how to actually bake your sourdough loaf. And I wish you the best of luck. I will show you now what the starter looks like, and then we'll get going on the bread recipe. Alrighty then, that's what a good fed starter looks like. It's all bubbly and foamy on the top, and we have quite a bit of it. So what we're going to do now is get ourselves a nice ceramic bowl. We're ready to start baking. You'll notice how nice and foamy and beautiful that starter is. Remember, if it smells like vinegar, you need to feed it one more day because it has a very healthy appetite. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a ceramic or glass bowl. I never use metal. I have this thing about metal. I think it kills stuff. We're going to take and start mixing up our bread dough. Okay, so we got ourselves a nice ceramic bowl. Remember, no metal. I hate metal. And a nice wooden spoon. It's got a hole in it. It's a little wore out, but it'll do. And we're going to start mixing up our sourdough bread. And then we will go through the rising process, and then we will bake it and take a look at it afterwards. I'm so excited. This is my favorite part after waiting 3 days. It's so nice to be able to have a final product, and we're going to have it tonight for supper with some, we're going to have bread and probably some sliced meat and cheese and some apples. It'll be a wonderful, wonderful New Year's Eve dinner. Yes, it's New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's to you all. No matter when you're looking at this videotape, Happy New Year. I hope you have a wonderful year, and I hope you start making your own sourdough bread on a regular basis. All right, so here's our fed sourdough starter. Oh, look at that. It's just beautiful, and you see all those nice little gassy bubbles in there? Perfect. Now you could make 2 loaves with this, because all you need is 1 cup of starter. Remember, no metal, no metal. We're using plastic everything. So we're going to put that gummy looking starter in there. And we're going to let this rise several times, and we're going to be working on its gluten structure before we actually bake it. So, boy, I would like to do 2. Maybe I will. Okay, so I have enough sourdough starter to make 2. If you're not going to use this up, give it to a friend or put it back in the refrigerator and save it for later. Okay, so we need 2 cups of lukewarm water. We're going to get a water measuring cup, and we're going to get some lukewarm water going here. Okay, we're going to do a second loaf here and freeze one. I am leaving town, so won't be able to eat it, but we're going to, while we're waiting for our water to warm up, start a second loaf here. All right, and we're going to put that in the refrigerator till I get back from vacation. Well, actually, it's not a vacation. Alrighty then, so we have lukewarm water. That might be a little hotter than lukewarm. You have to be careful with water temperature and bread. You don't want to kill off any of your yeast by putting too warm of water. So, yes, make sure it's lukewarm, something that you would probably check on your wrist like you would a baby bottle. Sorry, I dumped it into the same bowl. You've got 1 cup of starter in each of your bowls if you're making 2 cups or 2 batches of bread. So you want to add a cup of water and stir it up, and then we're going to add 3 cups of flour to each of these. And you're going to get a really sticky dough out of the deal, okay? And as you can see, I'm not being very careful about my measuring here, but sorry about the noise. There's 3 cups there. And then let's experiment with the other batch. We're going to use 3 cups of white flour in one batch, and we're going to put in 3 cups of wheat flour. That was ground by Stephanie Bloomhagen's mother. They are growing grains and harvesting, or growing grains and making flour, which is really awesome. I'm hoping that that becomes a good business for them. Okay, so we're going to put in 3 cups of wheat flour into this batch. And we're going to take this, oh, dear, I must have dropped my wooden spoon in the sink. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to mix that together. Now, the reason I decided to do the wheat here is because it's a little different. This is a nice sticky dough, but we're going to have to let it kind of, let's see, what's the word? We're going to let it rest, and this is called the autolysis period. 20 minutes for white and 40 minutes for wheat. Somehow that will get all the water will then become absorbed into the flour that I added, okay? And so now we're ready to let this sit for 40 minutes, okay? You don't want to just leave it sit on your counter. You've got to actually cover it up with your dishcloth. Again, remember, you're not trying to block out the air around you. You've got to let that oxygen in there, but you do not want any wind blowing on your bread dough. You don't want any bugs to join your bread dough and become one with your bread. Okay, we're going to find another spoon here. It'll mix a little better with a solid spoon instead of this dumb spatula. Okay, see, now for some reason this is not nearly as moist as the wheat one was. So you want to wet your hands and get in there with your hands, because you want to make sure this is combined. And then I'll set the timer for 20 minutes. And we'll come back and continue working on our bread dough. Now, I know many of you are going to say to yourself, oh my gosh, why would I want to go through all of this work for a loaf of bread? Well, I'll tell you what. There is something so healthy and so wonderful about sourdough bread, and it's so rewarding that you actually made it without buying any yeast. If you grind your own flour and grow your own grains, you can make a loaf of bread out of nothing. And making something out of nothing is one of the most rewarding things that you could possibly do. Well, if you're a do-it-yourselfer kind of person. Okay, so now this is a little stiff. Now I can tell you later when we come back and take a look at this after its resting period, is that we probably aren't going to have to add any more white flour to this loaf here, but we may have to add some white flour to the whole wheat. I've got some dishcloths over here, and we're going to cover that up, and I'll be back in 20 minutes. Alrighty then, our period of autolysis, if I'm saying that right, autolysis, is done for our dough that is made with the white flour. And so we are going to wet our hands, and we're going to sprinkle a little salt over the dough, and well, let's just take a peek at them. Okay, well, this is a little dry. Well, maybe not. Maybe this is just perfect. But we're going to, oh, good grief. We're not going to add that much salt. Okay, and we're going to do a little kneading. Now, if your dough is really, really sticky, you're going to have to put some flour down while you're doing this. But this dough is the perfect consistency. It's just beautiful. Okay, so we got the salt in there, and then pinch it into a nice round ball. We're going to put it back in the bowl, and we are going to begin the 3 to 4 hour final proof. I know that sounds like a lot, but the longer it takes you to bake this bread, the better it is for you, and the less you need to rely on commercial yeasts. So we're going to let this one go, and when we come back, we're going to wait another 10 minutes, and then this one definitely is going to need some flour. And then this one I'll show you what to do during the first 30 minutes of rising. And so it continues. Alrighty then. We let a little bit longer period of time go by. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell you that now that this has been a half an hour into its final proof, you want to like make it let go and gently stretch it out. Stretch, 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 stretch. We're stretching the gluten. And then we're going to try not to push out too much of the gas. I can feel it popping below my fingers there. So we'll let that baby go and see how much more puppy it will get for us, okay? And then the whole wheat, of course, is a little bit stiffer dough, a little bit harder to work with. We are going to try not to get too much salt into this one like we did the last one. And we're going to wet our hands again. And we're going to do a little kneading. This one might actually be more successful because it's a little bit looser dough. We are going to add a little bit of flour because it's a little sticky. Excuse me a minute here. I'm going to do this on the counter here. We're going to coat it and work that in gently, but you can feel the elasticity going on here. Oh, this is great. I'm going to add a little bit more flour here. Sorry, I should always have special clothes on when I'm baking bread. Okay, we're going to work the salt in, work a little extra flour, and yes, this is a much better feeling dough here because it's a little moister. Oh, maybe still a little bit too sticky. Baking bread has a lot to do with feelings. People tell me that they have dough that doesn't rise or something that doesn't bake properly. I always ask them if they do it with love, because that's part of it. Now, once again, while you need regular bread dough like this, we're going to put this away, let it sit again, and then we're going to complete the stretching activity with both of these batches of bread dough, stretching out the gluten every half an hour for the first probably hour or so that we're maybe the first couple hours before we let it absolutely have its last final proof, and then we're going to bake it, and I'm getting excited. Aren't you getting excited to see the results? Alrighty then, just remember, you're stretching every 30 minutes for, let's see, we started at about 12:30, so 12:30, 1:32, that might be enough. You see how, you see that, and when your dough does that, you know you're on the right track. So, we're going to pull this out. And it's nice and firm and beautiful. We're going to stretch that gluten, and we're going to roll it together, and we're going to give it this is going to be the last time we do this, but we're going to let it proof now for 2 more hours before we put it in the oven. And during that time, I'm going to be watching the New Year's Eve Twilight Zone. We're going to make a nice boulie out of it. Boulie, 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 boulie. Oh, I'm sorry, I just had to plunk it. Since we're going to be sliding it into the pan, let's see, we'll bake this one outside of the pan. We're going to put this on a floured cutting board so that we can slide it into the oven without playing with it anymore. We're on the final run here. So from now on, we got to be very beautifully gently to our beautiful dough ball. There we go. I'm going to make sure that you can slide that off, unless you have a peel, which I don't have a peel. I have a peel to some people, but I don't have a peel. So, and on a kind of a sidebar here, I just have to show you that I grew African violets and, among other things. And this one's blooming again. Isn't that wonderful? Not just a beautiful plant. I buy old teacups and put coffee filters and African violets in there. Oh, sorry. That doesn't have anything to do with bread baking. Except that I get to look at them when I'm over here. Okay, so we're going to put that one over there. And we're going to cover that up gently now with a beautiful dish towel that was made for me by my granddaughter. Grandma's helping hands. That way we know that this one's done and ready to go, even though you might not be able to see it in the camera. Okay, so now this is our whole wheat dough, and it's still a lot stickier than the other one. So I'm going to put a little flour on my hands and a little in the bottom of the bowl here, and do a little more kneading on this one. I'm tickled pink that this thing has such a beautiful hand to it at the moment. Those of you who bake a lot of bread, you know what I'm talking about, but we still want to stretch out that gluten. But you see how that's pulling apart and not holding together like the white ball of flour did, so, or the white ball of dough. That's why we need to add the little bit more flour in there. And we're going to leave it floured on the outside. I can hear the gas in there popping. Now I only have one Dutch oven, so I don't know how I'm going to work this out baking. I might trail this one by half an hour so that I can use the same Dutch oven, and I'll tell you about that later if you're wondering what that means. So here we go. 12:30, 1:32. We're going to do the whole wheat one again at 2:30, and then this one will be half hour into its final proof. We'll wait an hour and a half. We'll bake that one. This one will be behind it by half an hour. Stay tuned. It's getting closer. Alrighty then, another half an hour has passed. I hope you can see this. I'm going to let you peek. You'll see that it is rising. Rising, rising, rising. Looks like nice and puffy. And then we're going to leave that there. Now, see, we got a half an hour. So about 4:30, the way that's going, we're going to put that in the oven. And once again, this is rising also, but we want to stretch it out again. Oh yeah, we have a much better textured dough. Oh, it's beautiful. Now it's whole wheat, and so that's why I don't mind that it's a little bit on the mushy side, because whole wheat is heavier, it doesn't rise as well. I can hear the gas squeezing out of it again as I kind of work it. So we're going to, oh, this might be the last time we do that one too. So now we need another peel, or I have these wonderful cookie sheets that have no edges on them, these double layered ones. I'm going to flour that, and we're going to bully up our whole wheat dough here. Bully, 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 bully. This is how my husband makes his buns too. Nice and round, he said, but yeah. I don't want to take too much of that gas out of there. So we're going to, uh-oh, that's a little sticky. Make sure that you've got flour all the way bullied around the bottom there, because you want to be able to slide that off of there when the time comes to bake it. So we're going to let this one rise then a half an hour longer than that one, because we're using the same pan to bake, the same cast iron kettle. So I'll be back. To make sure that your dish towel isn't going to stick to the top of your bread dough, you want to sprinkle that with a little bit of flour also. But only because this one's extra sticky. I've not done this with completely wheat flour, so it'll be a very interesting experiment, eh? All right, go watch television. And now, after all this time, we're ready to bake our bread. You'll need a Dutch oven that has a cover on it, like so, or the other direction. It depends on what you have. A regular casserole dish will work. And I put like a piece of parchment in the bottom here because I don't want my bread to stick or burn to the bottom of this pan. And so then we're going to cover it up, turn the oven to 500 degrees and set the casserole in the oven. And yes, you heard that right. 500 degrees, casserole in the oven. Takes about half an hour for that to warm up. And once it does and the oven goes off, we're going to open the door and place the bread inside the casserole and cover it up. Reduce the heat to 450 and bake it for about 20-25 minutes. I haven't decided yet whether to bake this one in the casserole. It's spread out pretty good because it was a softer dough, and I would hate for it not to fit inside of that casserole dish, but we're going to give it a try anyway. So here's what our white loaf looks like. You'll see that it's raised nicely and it's quite heavy and ready to rock and roll. Alrighty then, the oven's been warming for a half an hour. We're going to pull out our casserole and we're going to plop in our dough ball and we're going to see what happens. One of the things that you want to do is put the top so that it can rise. Oops, I didn't cover it up. It's gotten a little dry. Make a pretty decoration in there, but here we go. I'm gonna have to help it along a little bit. Okay, well now it's not perfectly round, but it will still be okay. And we'll cover her up. And reduce the heat. Put the timer for 20 minutes. And away we go. All right, our buzzer went off. We're going to uncover our first loaf of bread and we're going to let it bake for 10 or 15 minutes longer without the cover on it so it gets nice and brown. And as you can see, it fell off and got misshapen because I unleashed the bottom of it, but it'll still be delicious. Okay, because of the size of the whole wheat loaf, we're just going to stick that in a 450 degree oven. After making a couple slices in there. And ta-da! We'll see what that one looks like in 20 minutes. Time's up! The moment has arrived. We're going to pull our magnificent loaf out of the oven. And I really hope you can hear it crackle, because that's the best part. As the loaf forms, as the bread cools and the loaf forms, it starts to crackle, crackle, crackle. You can see I had a little blowout there. But the shape of the loaf, does it matter much to me? No. Oh, I'm starving. Now remember, can't cut it for an hour. It needs time to seal. Whole wheat in the bottom oven. Coming along nicely, and we'll pull that one out and show you what that one looks like also. Needs a little more time to bake. And there's that whole wheat loaf. It's a little flatter, but remember I was questioning how much flour to put in there because I still wanted it to rise. It will make good dunking bread. So which one should I cut? This one? Or this one? Or this one? I think we'll try some of both. I'll let you know how it goes.